Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06 on this Labor Day, Monday morning in your nation's capital. It's Larry O'Connor here, back from vacation, last vacation, I promise, until Christmas. I know I'm sorry, Julie Gunlock. I mean, I'm not sorry. I was on vacation. It was fantastic. I was in Ireland, for crying out loud. It was great. Thank you to Andrew Langer for filling in. But I did miss being here. It's nice to be back. What do you do when you get back from vacation? All you want to do is talk about your vacation, right?
All right. We want to hear about it.
Which is what we'll do. I'll tell you a little bit about it. And yes, I'm here for the long haul now, through the Virginia elections, through Thanksgiving, through Fisher House Foundation Radiothon, and then Christmas time. Maybe I'll take some time off then. Coming up at 6:55, Mark Mix, president of National Right to Work Committee, talk about the jobs numbers and Labor Day in general. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva, of course. 7:35, our friend Mary Catherine Ham. 8:05, Alberto Ortiz. He is the president and CEO of Job Creators Network on this Labor Day. How are your job prospects? And at 8:35, Christian Toto on the passing of Jimmy Buffett, who, by the way, I keep seeing all these people posting pictures of Jimmy Buffett, and they're all like conservative Republican types.
Yeah.
Was Jimmy Buffett a right-winger?
I didn't know.
I mean, maybe he was, maybe. Listen, the point is, he was fine hanging out with conservatives, which is
That's
fine
right.
with me, too. And what an icon he was. He was also a multi-billionaire by franchising out that whole Margaritaville thing. So,
Yes.
I mean...
No, he's no dummy.
You know, I'll tell you why he wasn't a Republican, because he bought his own island and didn't have to worry about taxes. So he was like, yeah, okay, I'm fine. I'll just do my thing.
Enough about Buffett. Tell us about your vacation.
Well, I wasted away in Margaritaville.
No, you didn't.
It was a nice time. No, but I just wanted to keep
But
the
you
Jimmy
were
Buffett
in the
thing
land
going.
known for its music.
Can I tell you something? If I'm not a big, I always told my kids, because my kids wanted to like always look into their genealogy, and understandable, because my children are Irish, German, Russian, Jewish, French, Catholic, Chinese, Filipino.
Yeah.
So it's
a lot.
understandable that at various times they'd be like, well, what the hell am I? Where do I come from? And I was like, you know what? You should be less concerned. I told them, I am less concerned about my great-great-grandfather and what he stood for and who he was and what kind of man he was than I am worried about who you will be and what kind of person. Don't look in the rearview mirror all the time. Don't look at your aunt.
Sure.
It doesn't tell you who you are. Who you are is what you decide to make of yourself today, right? That was always how it was.
Yes.
And I still believe that, by the way.
But it's fascinating to know where you came from.
Well, that said, this is my first time in Ireland, and if I am connected to these people, it's funny. My kids actually did a whole Ancestry.com, and they're like, every time I would go somewhere and I said, "Look at this! Look how beautiful this is! Look at this is our," and she'd be like, "You're only 17% Irish. You just have the name, I'm like, you know what, Quinn? I don't need this in my life. You have the most Irish name of all of us, Quinn O'Connor.
Yes, exactly.
And it's true. I mean, my actual lineage, even though I have the name O'Connor, I am more German actually than I am Irish. But if I am connected in even the remotest way to the people of that country, and to their amazing outlook in life, considering how sad and depressing Irish history has been. And their incredibly optimistic joy that they embrace every day with, and the culture and the music and yes, the food and drink, which is a big part of the culture there. I mean, if I'm connected to them, I am so happy.
I'm not sure the food.
Let me tell you, I did not have a bad meal.
I think the beer is the drink.
It may have made the food taste better.
Yes. Well, I was there. I was in Ireland 2 years ago, and gosh, the people, my goodness, they are so lovely, welcoming, cheerful, joyful, and
not in one of those phony
independent
ways. Sometimes in foreign countries, they're like, they're supposed to be nice to the Americans because they're there for tourism.
Right.
I never got that vibe in
Ireland. No,
at all. They were nice because they're nice.
Yeah, they're nice. They're just lovely people. And I maybe, is it weird to say they're cheerful? I mean, I don't know if the Irish are known to be cheerful, but I found them to be just...
Listen, if I ended every night at McDermott's Pub with a cold Guinness and live Irish folk music, which is the way I did end my night every night when I was in Doolin,
that's so great.
then I would be a pretty happy person, too.
Yeah.
Despite the rain. It is.
Was it rainy?
It's a bit of a rain. Well, never in a way where it's like, well, we can't do anything today because it was just like a constant drizzle, sort of like Seattle.
Yeah.
It was like a Seattle, Portland vibe,
You posted a few photos on Twitter.
And there
Gorgeous.
were I couldn't post everything on Twitter.
I know. Tell us about that.
So we went. I
why were you there? Tell us why you were there.
I generally don't talk about my vacations ahead of time because, first of all, I don't want to signal to everyone that I'm going to be gone. And also, it's just boring. Who cares? In fact, it's weird for me to even talk, for 10 minutes here about it. But we were going for the Navy Notre Dame football game.
Yeah.
This was scheduled for Veronica's sophomore year, her youngster year at the Naval Academy, and it got canceled because of COVID. But we were always planned on doing this game. Ironically, we went to the game. And Veronica couldn't go because she's in the Navy now, so
right.
she couldn't get leave. But we went anyway with my daughter Quinn, my son Christian, me and Meredith, and then Lindsay Feifeld, who's been on this program before, and her husband, who's a Naval Academy grad. Yeah. 6 of us went. We flew in for the game.
Lindsay, who's like 100 months pregnant,
she's 7 months pregnant. She's on the verge.
Yes,
she's on the verge.
Yes, impressive.
And so we flew in day of the game, saw the game that night. And at the football game, great atmosphere. Notre Dame, hate them, awful people. Just way too many Notre Dame people in Dublin for that game. They beat Navy, fine, whatever. You know what? Their quarterback they had a 6th-year quarterback. No such thing in the Naval Academy everyone graduates after 4 years, okay, at the Naval Academy, and then they go give their life for our country. Your little Notre Dame Fighting Irish. By the way, I'm offended by that team name, and I want it changed.
Yeah.
Fighting Irish.
I agree.
I didn't see any fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. During the game, I may have gotten a little enthusiastic, and I stood up at one point on my seat in the stadium and had a retractable seat, like a regular stadium would.
Yeah.
And my phone, which had been on my on the side of the seat as I was sitting there, it slid down the back of the seat. And I thought, it's just on the floor, on the ground underneath me because it slid down. So I sat down on the seat to try to reach down underneath to get it.
Crunch.
It was sort of teetering on the back of the chair, and it was against the wall behind me.
So it got crushed.
It crushed my phone.
I mean, there was no salvaging it.
Oh, no. Well, you could hear it. You could hear, I could hear people messaging me and texting me during the game, and I couldn't see anything because the crystal was crushed. It was crushed. So I couldn't post anything. The only time I could access Twitter or email was at the end of the day when I got back to our rooms. And
I am impressed that you did not immediately go to a store and get a new one.
I investigated it many, many times. Meredith encouraged me to just try to take a week off from having a phone.
Good for you. You
was it good for me?
Truly checked out.
I still don't have a phone. If anyone's been trying to text me, by the way, I apologize. I have nothing. I posted that on Twitter, and I was stupid. I should have sent an email to all of my colleagues because I think that there were many people from work that were trying to reach me too. But you know what? I was on freaking vacation.
Yeah, there you go.
I rented a car for the 6 of us, so it was like a big van.
Yeah.
Not only did I have to drive on the right side of the road, I was the driver. I drove on the right side of the road with a steering column on the right side of the car. Right.
Whoa.
Because the steering wheels are on the right.
Oh, of course. Ooh.
And it was a manual transmission, which I didn't think existed anymore. Thank you.
Yeah.
And because you're driving on the right side, the stick for the stick shift is on the left.
Oh, this is so weird.
So I'm driving left side of the road, right side steering wheel, left-handed stick.
Was
shift.
it hard to get? Wait. So did you get this car in Dublin?
Yeah, I rented it in Dublin at the airport and then drove it to Doolin because then we finished our trip back in Dublin.
So you're having to drive in considerable traffic for at least some portion of it. Then are you on the M5?
Or M7 or M20 or I don't know.
So you did interstate mostly to the
the last hour of the drive to Doolin
is country road.
Country roads. And they took me home to the place I belong. It was great.
So Doolin, Cliffs of Moher.
Doolin, Galway, Cliffs of Moher, Aran Islands.
Beautiful.
Countryside, amazing. Green, cows, butter.
Well,
love it.
Meanwhile, Guinness. I did lots of laundry. So I had a great week, too. Thanks for asking, Larry.
Very similar. Very similar situation. Good to be back. I'm well rested. I'm ready to go. It was fantastic. I can't wait to go back. I can't believe I've lived this long and not gone to Ireland. I will not make that mistake again.
With a name like O'Connor, what is wrong with you?
It's 5:15 WMAL traffic. A really sad and stunning development this weekend as we learned of the passing of Jimmy Buffett, just an iconic musical artist from the 70s, but his brand transcended generations. You see these Jimmy Buffett concerts that he was giving right up until the year of his death, and you've got 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids singing along, dancing along with their parents, with their grandparents, and of course the Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville branded restaurants that he was smart enough to sort of license out. And here's the thing about Jimmy Buffett: all you do when you hear his music is you just smile, and and it makes you feel good. It was like the Beach Boys music,
Totally. Yeah.
And it was very. I didn't know he was sick. And there hasn't been a whole lot of information.
Yeah.
About it.
He's sort of a private person, I think.
Yeah.
He isn't, especially the last several years. I think he's been kind of quiet. But then again, he's a bajillionaire, owns an island. He can do that. But yeah, I had no idea he was sick.
Yeah,
Pretty
apparently he had cancer, and he's been battling cancer for 4 years. And if you look at pictures of him, he does look like he was. I just thought he was getting fitter because he's always been kind of. It's funny when you go back and look at some of the Jimmy Buffett sort of videos in the very pre-dawn era of videos back there in the late 70s. He's a little kind of pudgy, kind of but
yeah. So he did look thinner. Yeah,
he was definitely, but more muscular too. I mean, let's face it, he lives on a private beach or in his private island. He would yacht around. He would, the whole Jimmy Buffett lifestyle, which is incredibly appealing.
Yeah.
He was in good shape, it seemed, but he had been battling cancer for 4 years.
And it was skin cancer, Merkel cell carcinoma, which is a rare and aggressive skin cancer. Very sad.
He passed away surrounded by his family, his friends, his music, and his dogs, said his website.
And Paul McCartney, apparently in his very last days, went to him and sang to him as
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Of course, Margaritaville, the iconic song, but Cheeseburger in Paradise, It's 5 o'clock somewhere. And Come Monday, I had forgotten how much I love that song. I think that's the one that I played over and over again. Come Monday is such a great song. And always with this sort of lilting, even you have the steel drums in the background as part of the orchestration, so it makes you feel upbeat. But Come Monday is not necessarily a happy song because he's yearning and missing someone, so it had sort of this melancholy to it, even when it was happy. Wasting Away in Margaritaville, he's singing about breaking up with his woman, and even that song though gets everybody on their feet singing and dancing along with it, even though there's kind of a sad underlying theme to it. It's it's what transcends music into art, and he was an amazing artist. Also, Julie, I don't know if you noticed, or go ahead, finish.
Well, no, he was also I was just going to say, he was also a very skilled businessman.
Yes.
I mean, he used his fame, restaurants, record labels, beer. He had a casino.
Yeah.
He did a lot of partnerships with sports organizations. Cannabis, no big surprise. But yeah, really, he was no dummy.
No, he died a multi-billionaire, I believe, and made very wise choices with his branding. And I was surprised, and I don't want to sort of inject politics into anything here, but I was surprised at how many people who were considered right of center conservatives who were tweeting out pictures of themselves with Jimmy Buffett. Saying, like KT McFarlane.
I saw that.
Right? With a picture. And Mike Love, who from the Beach Boys, of course, they had a connection with the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But Mike Love is also a, openly conservative individual. Clint Black. It doesn't Clint Black show up on, and John Rich also. I saw it. It is just a lot of people that you consider to be somewhat right of center.
Yeah.
Showing themselves and maybe Jimmy Buffett was just incredibly ecumenical, and he showed up and was just a happy guy no matter what your politics.
I don't know his politics, and I mean, I think people probably assume he's more left of center because he did a lot of environmental work. But
that's okay.
I mean that's not all environmental work is bad, but most of it is. But that's the thing. He kept that relatively quiet. So that's refreshing nowadays, where you have to scream about everything.
Exactly. So. He was never that guy that I know of, and his parrot heads were incredibly loyal. The parrot head fan base. Pretty amazing, and what a life lived, and pretty cool that he could transcend 70s music and just sort of choose the life that he wanted to live, and continue to be prolific, continue to entertain, and make people happy. That's what he did. He made people happy.
Yeah, he did.
523.
Are your wiper blink 105.9 WMAL?
O'Connor and Company.
5:36. It's O'Connor and Company, and I'm happy to be back here on this Labor Day. And thanks to Andrew Langer for filling in for me last week, and of course for Julie and for Patrice and Mercedes for putting up with them. Coming up at 6:35, Mark Mix of the National Right to Work Committee, talking about the Labor Day celebration and your rights as an employee in this country, if you are one. 705 Joe DeGenova. Joe DeGenova, plenty to talk with him about. 735, Mary Catherine Ham. 805, Alberto Ortiz, Job Creators Network. And then 835, Christian Toto, about the passing of Jimmy Buffett. Julie Gunlock, you mentioned we got some people coming in about jobs because it's Labor Day. Did you know that, would it surprise you if you learned that as a teenager, I sold popcorn and candy at a boutique movie theater that specialized in foreign films?
Really? That is odd.
Is it, though? I mean, for me, knowing me.
Well, that's true.
Sorry.
No, yeah. Totally normal.
That might not even be
but
the
fun.
weirdest
That
job
sounds,
I ever
but
had.
it's interesting. It's like, that's what I meant. It's like,
yeah,
an interesting job.
Somebody asked me, because Labor Day over the weekend, actually my son was like, Dad, what's the weirdest job you ever had? And I realized the job I have right now is the weirdest job I've ever had.
Yeah.
We sit in a room, just the two of us, a couple of other people passing by. We sit and talk into electronic sticks.
It is unusual, but it's fun.
Yeah, it is. Have you ever had a weird job?
Well, it's funny. I had a very normal job. One of my, when I was a teenager, but nowadays it would be considered weird. And I'm not even sure my children would understand it. What? I worked at a video store.
Oh, that's like selling whips to horse and buggy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I worked and it was a family owned. It wasn't like Blockbuster. We hated Blockbuster, man.
Of course. That's
and it was so, I mean,
monster.
I think that's a lot of why I know a lot about pop culture. And
did you have a Be Kind Rewind t-shirt?
No, I didn't. No, I did not.
Okay. Was there like the porn section behind the drapes?
We had we did not have a porn section. This is a tiny little farm community in Illinois. But we did have those those Playboy videos. Or they weren't like Playboy, they were like it was soft porn. Yeah, and I remember getting told off, and I was like, I am 15 years old. I don't choose the movies, lady Karen. Anyway, so yeah, we had a few spicy movies.
Yeah. That was that is fun. I love that you can tell your kids that you worked at a video store.
Yeah. And I still, when I see movies, I can still remember their box. The box.
That's hilarious. Mm-hmm. I love it. Now, did you have to, if people did return it? I'm obsessed with the rewinding thing because I got dinged.
Of course,
with
you had to rewind it. Yeah, but most people did. This was a nice town.
Machine.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, of course.
Very cool. I can't think I had a weirder job than that. I was a paper boy.
I didn't like to touch the ones that came back that were soft porn.
I would think not. Yes.
Let me get my gloves on.
Exactly. Well, we did get unemployment numbers on Friday. Didn't get a lot of attention going into the holiday weekend, but unemployment went up 3.8% in August. Payrolls did increase. This is the weirdest thing. You get increased payrolls. The estimate was 170,000 jobs. They got 187,000 jobs, but unemployment went up significantly, actually. The real unemployment rate now has jumped to 7.1%. That means takes into account people who are not participating in the workforce, et cetera. The biggest gain was by the healthcare sector, and average hourly earnings also went up about 0.2% for the month, which is, of course, well below the inflation rate. So either way, it's hardly, Bidenomics, it's working is not going to be the campaign slogan you hear, I think, going into next year.
It's funny, we deliver this bad news, and Karine Jean-Pierre would read this like good news.
Right.
That's amazing.
Of course.
Yeah.
The rolls of the unemployed grew by 514,000. Household count of those employed increased by 222,000. Most of the jobs came from the private sector, government contributing just 8,000. And that's because, again, when they say Bidenomics is working, you inject a bunch of money into the economy. through the government by confiscating it from producers and then throwing it into sectors that you determine are going to be the winning sectors to get the money from the government to hire people, even though the market is not demanding that those people be hired. And you see artificial changes.
Yeah.
But ultimately that catches up to you.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, socialism and communist central planning economies would have worked every time it was tried because that's all they do, right? And that's in a microcosm what the Biden economic plan has been. Just increase spending, increase taxes, confiscate people's money, and then we will determine who gets the spoils. And for the most part, it's been solar companies and, green energy, climate change kind of businesses that we're going to see go bankrupt in the next couple of years because it's artificial. There isn't any actual real natural demand and market demands on those products.
And that's
where we are. That's where we are. But they're hoping that the injection is going to be enough to carry it through till Election Day. The problem is the Fed has got to keep raising interest rates to offset that fake influx of federal cash, and that is keeping people in this sort of what we would call stagflation, where we're just sort of what we used to call stagflation, at least, because maybe you got a job now that you didn't have before, but inflation is so much higher and interest rates are so much higher that you can't afford to do anything with your money. And everything costs more.
And in the housing market, I mean, things are, houses are still very expensive, but people can't buy them. And certainly young people can't get into the housing market at this point with interest rates so high. But something's going to break here. I mean, the prices of these houses are still very high, but that's going to break. There's going to be a reduction in home prices. And so, people who do want to move, they feel trapped in their house because they can't move. They might get a good price on their house, but then the house they want to buy is incredibly expensive. And then interest rate, it's a mess.
And people are accruing credit card debt.
Yes.
Skyrocketing.
Yes.
And you look at every single indicator pre-COVID in the Trump administration, we were at full employment. We had energy costs incredibly low, more than half of what they are right now. And self-sufficient, and record numbers of unemployment or employment numbers with Black Americans, women, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans. Across the board, every indicator was much better. Inflation wasn't near where we are right now, and interest rates were down. Every single measure of the economy was better under Trump pre-COVID until that pandemic hit.
Yeah, credit card debt, you mentioned that. Credit card levels have reached a new record. They've surpassed $1 trillion. And this was information just released last week. So
we are going to talk about these job numbers further on in the day, especially within the context of this being Labor Day. We've got Mark Mix at 6:35 and Alberto Ortiz at 8:05. We're also going to talk about the strength of labor unions in this country right now and whether they have been weakened by new laws, right-to-work laws, the Janus decision on government employees being able to redirect their union dues because government unions are so incredibly politicized. I'll tell you, I never had any interest in this whole Burning Man thing, Julie Gunlock, although we've spoken to Grover Norquist, of course, from Americans for Tax Reform many years, because he's been going to Burning Man. Burning Man is this sort of it's become a phenomenon. We're out in the middle of the desert. There's nothing one day, and the next day there's this huge elaborate concert stage and this very elaborate sort of camp out sort of. It feels like a post-apocalyptic desert environment where people sort of live in
a little bit of Mad Max kind of feel to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thunderdome
and a lot of drugs and a lot of nudity. And a lot of what you would imagine.
Yes, it is funny, though, because Burning Man started off as this sort of like hippie, collection of hippies getting together. And then, they burn this big thing in the desert or whatever. And then
worship their pagan gods.
Yes. And then it was like rich people got wind of it and then started rolling up in these, tricked out campers.
Right. And celebrities and music
stars. And I mean, people were, and then some people would set up these very fancy tents, and it was like corporate sponsored.
Right. With
so it
diesel
has
generators. And
So at some point, Burning Man became a little bit monetized, and there was like criticism of that it's not it's not supposed to be like that. So Anyway, the Burning Man the evolution of Burning Man is kind of fun to watch.
It really appealed to sort of almost you can be conservative, you can be libertarian, and then you can be an anarchist. And the libertarians who lean toward anarchy really enjoy Burning Man.
Yeah.
It's like, we created our own society and we don't need the government and we can do whatever we want. And the hippies are like that too, right?
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, see, we can do it all on our own. We don't need anything and we don't need it, until it rains. And that's what happened. Everything was great. Society was perfect. We had everything that we needed. We're self-sustaining in the desert. Look at us. And then it rained. And now what?
And it's the Dahmer kind of
now
like, or the Donner
right.
Party. The Donner Party.
They have begun eating each other. It is survived. I shouldn't say someone has died. It is miserable out there.
Which, by the way, I didn't know people didn't die at Burning Man every year.
From overdoses.
Yes, I was like, really? Oh, okay. Like I assumed many people died at Burning Man every year, but
I guess they didn't. Nobody out there had an app to show them that a storm was coming, but they are now stuck, and the rain has come back. 70,000 just stuck out in the mud. Their vehicles can't move because this is the desert, and suddenly when a huge rainstorm comes...
It's a weird kind of mud, too. Something like the water's very alkali, so there's something about the mud being extra sticky and it making it very difficult for vehicles to move in it. So it's not just like a muddy day. There's something about the mud that makes it... You can get chemical burns, essentially, if you walk around barefoot in this mud, so... Yeah, not an easy situation.
Comedian Chris Rock and DJ Diplo walked for miles before they hitched a ride out of Burning Man. They walked until
people are walking out.
Right. Well, I mean, that's okay. You can walk.
Anyway, but
it's
this
okay.
is the thing. This is the thing. We when you say people are stuck. The thing is, people go into Burning Man with enough food and water for a couple days, and now they actually have to stay there longer. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't have what they need.
Right.
But I love this. Organizers still plan to burn the man if weather permits.
We're still
it's
funny.
Burn him, man.
Okay, I love that there is apparently a Burning Man CEO. Yeah, there is. They are denying anything's wrong. Yeah. They have turned down help from the National Guard. But the CEO of Burning Man Project, so Burning Man Project, whatever that is, Marianne Goodell told NBC News, "There's no cause for panic. We're very pleased and surprised there's been such a fuss over us." But she says things are fine. So
it rained at Woodstock, man, and it made it better. So we'll be fine. I think this may be my favorite part of the entire story. President Biden has been briefed on the situation at Burning Man Festival. Now, imagine how that conversation goes.
Well,
all right, Mr. President, let's start at the beginning. So there's this, there's a concert that they do in the desert. And he has any concept of what's going on here.
Well, he's probably going to go there and talk about his cat and a '67 Corvette. I suspect Burning Man will get more aid than Maui. Okay, I'm calling it right now.
Right. Meanwhile, in East Palestine, they're like, maybe we should burn something. It's 5:53.